We've talked about how some of the unions in this nation are focusing on their power instead of on the union members, which is an old story. Joining us now on the Savage Nation is Mallory Factor, who has a new book out entitled Shadowbosses, which sheds some light on what these unions are actually up to. Mallory Factor, welcome to the Savage Nation.
Michael, great to be here.
So what made you write this book?
This book is about coercion. It's about corruption. It's about violence, secrecy, special waivers, backroom deals, feather bedding, and nationwide classroom indoctrination. Welcome to America's tax-funded government employee unions.
How were the unions involved in passing Obamacare?
It's real simple. What's happening is, what happened was, way before Obama took office, there were plans being made by the SEIU. That's the union that our union label president was a member of. There was an actual presentation made by a fellow, a Clinton senior policy advisor, former Clinton senior policy advisor, Chris Jennings. He made a presentation called Prescription for Successful SEIU Strategy for Healthcare. And what they talked about is, with a national healthcare system, everybody would eventually become government employees, and they could go ahead and try to unionize them. Right now, we have about 1.5 million employees that are unionized in our healthcare industry. After Obamacare takes full effect, SEIU wrote a memo to the head of Obama's transition team, who was Daschle, former Senator Daschle, and they said they're going to have 21 million members, and they'd like to get every single one of them paying dues and force them into paying dues.
Well, everyone says the union bosses are the problem. There's nothing new under the sun. It was well known through the 50s and 60s they were corrupt.
In Shadowbosses, we really go into that in great detail. Michael, that's well put. What happens is these shadow bosses, they masquerade as pro-worker, but what they're really doing is they're bankrupting our pension systems. They're killing our prosperity. They're destroying K through 12 education, and they do this while confiscating rank-and-file members' dues for the sole purpose of solidifying their power across America and in Washington.
You say under Obama there's been more kickbacks than any other president in history? So we've gone backwards 50 years?
He's our first union label president. It is amazing. You know what is even more amazing? After his first 100 days, there's an argument that went on in the press between Richard Trumka, AFL-CIO's thug boss, and Andy Stern, the former SEIU head. Andy Stern bragged about how he'd been to the White House 22 times and met with the president at least 6 times, all in the first 6 months of the presidency. And by the way, that's more than a lot of cabinet members got to meet with the president. And then Trump comes back and says that brags that he'd visited the White House 2 or 3 times a week and talked with a member of the White House staff every single day, including weekends.
What about unions and politicians?
Oh, in Shadowbosses, that's one of the things we show in great detail. Conventional wisdom says that big labor does thug-in-chief Barack Obama's bidding. But in our book, Shadowbosses, we demonstrate through research exactly the opposite. It's the public sector union honchos that are wagging the White House dog, and I'm not talking about Bo. The teachers' union, believe it or not, take in $2 billion a year in dues, just the teachers' unions. And they use it to control education. And what's really sad are sometimes Teachers of the Year, this actually happened, Teachers of the Year in New Jersey, Nevada, Teachers of the Year in Michigan. They were fired while teachers who were doing poor jobs, having poor track records, were kept on. It's all because of the union. One of the best quotes I've ever heard, some people say he said it, and some people say he didn't say it, is from Albert Shanker, and that is, when students start paying dues, that's when I'll represent the interests of students.
What do you mean by forced unionization?
Well, in 22 states, if you're a member, if you're working for the government, and you and you want to sell your labor freely, and you want to stay out of a union, you can't. They'll throw you out. They'll fire you. You have to pay the union tribute, or you can't keep your job. You got to pay them dues.
What feedback have you heard?
Our book has become a bestseller overnight, and what we've been actually vilified by the AFL-CIO. They've actually said some pretty rotten things about us, but we expect that. The fact is that these guys are the true one percenters that they like to talk about. You'd be shocked at the amount of money these guys make. I mean, we're talking about huge amounts of money. A secretary treasurer of one of the unions asked me makes $847,000. $847,000. I mean, these guys are huge takers. Private planes. One union chieftain spent $325,000. $325,000 on just private plane trips in a period of 18 months. That was AFSCME's president, Gerald McEntee.
Union coercion is legal? Oh, I guess so.
Sure is, and that is so sad too. There's a case called the U.S. versus Enmans, and it's really pretty sad. What happens is there's a strike going on, and in the strike, some workers blow up a generator. They blow up a generating station. They fire high-powered rifles, and the substation blows up. All sorts of violence goes on, and these are electrical workers striking. The court decides that their acts aren't wrongful use of violence, and that they can't be prosecuted under federal extortion laws because they are in the furtherance of legitimate union goals. I mean, these goals being improving the outcome of a strike. It's like getting a free get out of jail card. That's wrong. I mean, it's just shocking.
Where can we read more?
First of all, buy the book, and after you're done reading it, don't keep it. Give it to a legislator. Get him to read it. Get him to understand what he's doing to our country. Give it to a mayor. And after you get Shadowbosses, go to the website, www.shadowbosses.com. We put information up there all the time, and we'll continue to try to keep you informed.
Mallory Factor, good luck with your book. Thanks for being with us on The Savage Nation.
Michael, I can't thank you enough for having me.